Hello, everybody. Thank you again. We're going to get started here. Before we get started, I'm going to reintroduce the judges. I know I brought these up earlier, but we have some distinguished judges here, and I want to make sure that they are acknowledged. So we're very excited to have everybody here. In no particular order, we have Allison Laux, who's a director at ESPN in business development and sports analytics, and my boss. So welcome, Allison. We have Megan Chayka, who is the founder of Stathletes and does so much in the hockey world, so she is truly a pro. We have Keith Hortzman, who's the vice president of technology at the NHL. And we have Brant Berglund, who is the senior director of coaching and GM applications at the NHL. So these guys know their hockey, and it's going to be a lot of fun. They are judges, but we're also all really excited to see what you do. Not so much to criticize, but to hopefully just appreciate. So we're very excited. So we're going to have a number of different presentations here. I want to be remiss not to introduce the bouncer of the team, Hank. He's Hank Gargiulo. He's on our team. He's going to be the timekeeper. Do not mess with Hank. You have 2 minutes. We cannot go over 2 minutes. But before the clock starts, you're going to introduce yourself, your name, everybody on the team, or if you're an individual, your name, your open versus student status, and what you're affiliated with, whether it be a company or a school. That will not count against your time. That just gives everyone an idea of who you are, and so that'll be fun. And so, like I said, you have 120 seconds this year to do this, and we're going to get started. Like I said, Lauren Poe, she's going to be running the slides. And if there are any questions or directions, let her know. And if you want to plug in your own laptop, let her know as well. So why don't we get started? Everybody has an ID. We're going to start with Team 1. Cameron Smith.
Over there? Or?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. Sounds good.
Come on up.
Hello, everybody. I'm Cameron Smith here. I work for Amazon Advertising and Analytics. I'm also a committee member for the Communications Committee for Commonwealth Sport Canada. So we're going to Birmingham this year. Looking forward to that, all you Commonwealth countries out there. So I initially went off on a tangent trying to go after face-off data. Really rich data set that we have here. Very excited to dive into it. On the next slide, you'll see where I got, which was maybe not the farthest of what I wanted to get at, but I wanted to talk about the approach that I took. So I wanted to understand how the shape of the positions in a face-off circle really contribute to a subsequent event. And so there's lots of information that we have on face-offs itself. We can understand, the handedness, if it's home or away. Obviously, there's differences in the face-off lineup, but I wanted to understand exactly how the shape of the rest of the players worked. I approached it with a Markov chain model, so that's kind of using existing statistics to predict the future. Didn't get the farthest with it, and so ended up with a bit of a nice little Tableau visualization that I had there. But in the future, I think there's lots of exciting areas for face-offs. I know that AWS and ESPN actually are coming out with a face-off probability, live probability of wins there, based on the past 10 years of data. And I really think that face-offs are kind of the first area that we can focus in on. Similar to how we had baseball with pitchers and batters, I think that face-offs are an area for machine learning in the future. So, thanks a lot, everybody, and hope you guys have a great conference.
Hello everyone. My name's Krishant. I'm in the student track. I'm a grad student at University of Calgary, and I'm taking a work semester with Drive Hockey Analytics. Today I'll give you a brief overview about predicting quality zone entry. Slide, please. Thanks. So I start off this analysis with a quick, simple question: which zone entry leads to a better success, either a dump in or a carry in? Here, success I define on my own in terms of possession time, shot attempt, and quality shot attempt. And finally, what I spent most of the day on, I try to predict the quality of the zone entry based on those three terms. Slide, please. So I use the entity, marker event, and possession data and location data. To answer the first question, I conducted a hypothesis test. To get ready for the logistic regression models, I feature engineered 3 features. The first one was the average distance from the 2 closest defenders to the puck carrier. Then I figured out how many players are in the attacking zone, the defenders. Then I calculated the distance from the boards to the puck carrier when entering the zone. To determine the danger zone, or to assess the quality of the shot, I figured out this region in the offensive zone, so that just gives a good quality scoring chance. And then finally, I just built the regression models, where success is just if it happened or if it didn't happen. Slide, please. So in conclusion, I can assert that carrying the puck in is the optimal zone entry. The results from the regression model were 70% accuracy and 70% precision when success was defined in possession time, and 83% accuracy and 0 precision when success was defined in quality shot attempt. All right, thank you guys.
Hi everyone, my name's Eric. I'm from Canada as well. I go to the University of Waterloo.
My name is Nick. I go to University of Michigan.
And so we're doing, as you can see, all about breakouts, getting the puck out of your zone. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so while Eric is actually a hockey referee, I have no hockey background, and so I wanted to try to make something that was very applicable, and so I actually reached out to someone who was a former professional player with the AHL to really understand the problem, and his whole thing was playoff hockey is very simple. All it's about is get the puck out of your zone, the defensive zone, and into their zone, and the only way to do that is through the neutral zone.
So what we wanted to look into is what are the best relationships between the 5 defensive players, including or 6, I guess, including the goalie, in terms of getting the puck out of the zone. So here's a visualization and of the puck, the green, and leaving the zone, and we wanted to look at the location, the velocity, and the acceleration of the players compared to the puck, and we used that, and we did that using network maps. Next slide. So here are the network maps, and basically the ones in red are ones that were unsuccessful. There was a turnover before they left the zone, and the ones that are green are the ones where they were able to get the puck out of the zone. And as you can see, they look very similar where they're all moving in unison, but there's a couple differences. With the red ones, you can see how there's a bit darker lines going across, which means that maybe some of the players weren't all in unison in comparison to the puck. And I'll have Nick explain a bit more.
Yeah, the way we created this was we basically were already given the distance, velocity, and acceleration, and just for every player on the home team that was on the ice, we just calculated the Euclidean velocity and Euclidean acceleration between all of them and the puck. And the idea is we just wanted to come up with something that was relatively simple. As you can see, there are certain relationships between 2 players that's really important, and so we wanted to make it so that a defensive player like the one we talked to, we could just say, make sure you pay attention to that other player. Something very simple they can have in the back of their mind.
Okay, thank you very much. And here are just other further research that people can do with network maps. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eli Neeson. I'm a senior at the College of William & Mary, and I'm in the student track.
Hi everyone, I'm Scott Richardson. I go to the Wilfrid Laurier University, also in Canada, and I'm in the student track as well. So today we are looking at shot cone traffic and shot results. We had 3 goals today. The first was to look at the cone created between the shooter and the 2 goalposts and determine how many players on the ice lied in that cone. We did that by calculating the slope for from the shooter to each player on the ice, and then ensuring that it lies in between the slopes created from the shooter to each post. After that, we also wanted to compare or calculate the average time for each player on the opposing team as well as the shooter's team, and the total between the 2, and examine the relationship between the number of players that are currently in the cone at the time of the shot, as well as the average time that they'd been in the cone already.
Slide, please. So the goal was to take the marker file and basically find every event that was considered a shot or a goal, and then check using the slope method that Scott mentioned whether a player was actually in the cone between the shot and the goal posts. And if the player was in the cone, then to determine how long they were there, and then build a data frame with all the shot results and the number of players in the cone and the average time in order to visualize the percentage of each of the various shot results given the number of players in the cone from each team. Unfortunately, we ran into issues with the hits records and with block shots not having location data for the shot location, only for the block location. And because of that, we were unable to actually get a data frame from which to visualize this as we had intended to do so. Thank y'all.
This was theirs. Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, gotcha. Ooh, my bad. Hi, I'm Fabrice Malumba. I'm a software engineer at Coalfire Systems.
I'm Daniel Lee. I'm a Bayesian statistician. I helped create Stan.
And sorry, we're presenting on our Sloan goalie card. So the problem is defensive evaluation is too result-driven when it should be process-driven, especially in a quote-unquote low-scoring sport such as hockey. Next slide. Oh, next slide, sorry. And so the way we went about going about this is we actually, not showing. Not showing. Well, we created an app, but it's coming up soon. It's like a display issue. Okay. So yes, we compare the 2 goalies from the Stanley Cup Finals. Sorry about that delay. And so you can see we compared by games, all games, and we show the graphs as an allocation from the depth while they're defending.
And the importance of this is showing that when so many people care about like who scored or who won, who lost, but don't care about how you got to that point. And that confirmation bias is just so frustrating to see, especially because by nature of the game, a lot of the times when the goals happen, the goalie's at a fundamental disadvantage. And so when you're actually evaluating them, you need to see what led to that result. So we accounted for shot location, the shooter, the shot distance, shot outcome, the goalie position, goalie's depth. And you can see that Kudobin they played a very comparable game. Yes, the Lightning may have won, but you're actually going by goalie evaluation, even though, yes, they lost. The goalies actually played very comparable games, very comparable performance, but the media is not going to care about that. They're going to care about who won, who's going home, and the narrative and the discussion is going to come down to why they lost, not what led to that point. And yes, we also have our PowerPoint as well, but we thought the best way to showing it was through the app and our future plans for it. We want to make use of all these data and just display our model output as well.
We also built a quick Bayesian logistic regression on whether or not distance mattered, and what this means is that the depth doesn't really matter. We have a quick heat map of probability of stop.
Thank you, and sorry about those technical difficulties. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Chase Siebold. I'm a sport analytics major at Syracuse University.
My name's Quinn Spangler, and I'm also a sport analytics major at Syracuse.
All right, so we'll get into our research here, and first I kind of want to take you through the thought process and how we kind of got to our project. So first, it's a relatively small sample, 6 games, which likely isn't enough to make a lot of predictions and kind of create expected statistics like expected goals, stuff like that. The sample just isn't large enough. So what we wanted to do was make something descriptive, and in this case, we wanted to look at fatigue, which we used maximum shift on a speed for. Quinn's about to take you through the generalized additive model that we made to measure this.
So here we see the results of said model that was just mentioned. Some of the variables we included to account for fatigue, as well as just player general ability, so their speed coming in, so we could control for their fatigue, include their previous shift times throughout the game, their distance per shift leading up to the current shift, whether or not they were a defender compared to a forward, whether or not they had the puck at the time they were moving, to kind of control to see if they were moving faster with or without the puck. And we also controlled for the number of shifts in the game, as well as their maximum speed in that game again, just to kind of control for their general speed without fatigue. And you can kind of see there, the last 2 terms were, according to our model, were nonlinear relationships, while when we ran this model, we saw that the first 4 there on the parametric coefficients were closer to linear relationships.
And so using this model, we kind of created residuals to see if there were any patterns in kind of what was going wrong in the model. And it turned out that there really wasn't anything that was similar throughout all the high residuals. For example, we had all kinds of different positions, the shift numbers, all different times during the game, and basically, which leads us to believe that our model does not omit a ton of variables.
And here are our conclusions. Sorry, Hank.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hirsch Gupta. I'm a grad student at Georgia Tech.
Hello, my name is Ben No. I'm a sophomore at the University of Rochester. Next slide. So for our project, we wanted to look into traffic cones, same as like Group 4. And as for our methodology, we first found just like the coordinates of both posts and where the shot was taken by iterating through the markers. And once we found that, we took the time of the shot and went through all the entities, so all the players, and found where the players were at those given points. And from there, calculated or found whether they were actually in the traffic cone. And yeah, but we ran into a few issues. You could
Yeah, so unfortunately for time and for some bugs that came up while we were coding, there were some issues that we didn't expect to occur. And so for like, I was trying to find the tracking data for all the players during the shots, and at some points with the like frequency of when the tracking is occurring, you want to have a small time span, and so at certain points some of the players were at longer time spans, so there's just a lot of issues on finding the players and finding where they were. But if we had more time, we would like to, continue to build on finding the player location and relating it to how many people were in the cone, both offensive and defensive, and hopefully, we'd like to, if ideally, we would have tried to build a logistic regression model that would, compare, that would predict if there was a goal, if there wasn't a goal, based on how many people were inside or outside of the cone. Thank you.
I'll give you guys a second to read the comment. Oh, thank you. Is this thing on? Yep, cool. Yeah, data cleaning. I think we all enjoyed that part of this project, didn't we? So I have two parts. One is the thing I wanted to do, and then the one is the thing that happened. What I wanted to do is look at shift times and how over the course of the game, people may be slowing down, especially in overtime. Does like the length of the shift actually affect how much speed you lose later in the game when everyone's already tired, or is it just adrenaline at that point? Unfortunately, I downloaded my data wrong. I only had about an hour left, and you can turn the slide now. What can you do in an hour? Well, let's think about what is the most exciting part of the 2020 Stanley Cup Finals. And the answer came to me actually pretty quickly. You can go to the next slide. Oh yes, the video doesn't show up. Perfect. I feel like that's a good way to end this. No, it was Stamkos's goal in Game 3. He only played 3 minutes the entire series, and yet scored a basically series-changing goal that gave Tampa Bay all the momentum for the rest of the series. So I was like, okay, what does Stamkos do in this game? Let's capture what Stamkos did. Oh, there's the video. Go watch the video sometime, it's good. You can go to the next slide. Do we have a next slide? Oh, sweet. I'm glad we actually have something. So I honestly noticed some problems quite early on. For one, I don't remember Stamkos committing a penalty. Also, 10 acts of shooting the puck seemed like a lot. I tried to parse out, I believe Group 7 was talking about repeat data. A lot of the data did repeat itself. So just if it occurred around the same amount of time, you take it out, you kind of parse it together, and it makes it nice and simple. So what is going on here? Why did they have so many problems? It's because it's not Game 3. You can go to the next slide. It's from Game 6. At this point, I kind of had to give up. But apparently, this data set was coming from 928, which was Game 6. So that was kind of the story of what happened and what I tried to do. Data parsing, people. It's really fun.
Hey everyone, I'll introduce myself first. My name is Charlie Logan. I am currently a basketball research intern with the Phoenix Suns while I'm finishing my senior year at the University of Michigan, so student track. Go ahead. So for some background, as you all know, hockey is a game of possessions, particularly creating advantageous possessions, and carrying the puck in can create that kind of advantage.
And this is building on Eric Tulski's 2011 Sloan paper on controlled entries, where he found that a controlled entry created around 2 times more shots on average for the team than an uncontrolled entry. Go ahead. So the goal was to explore the relationship between the game situation and a team's decision to either carry or pass the puck indirectly rather than dump it in. And so to do this, I narrowed down the data to just occurrences where a team had possession and the puck crossed their offensive blue line. Additionally, individuals can be tagged with possession if they were the one that carried it over themselves or made a pass across the blue line. And the results of that logistic regression model, to see if we can explore that relationship, score difference at the time of an offensive possession was not a statistically significant predictor of whether a team would decide to dump it in or carry it in, while a little more expected, a power play was a very strong predictor where if a team was on a power play, we would expect around a 75% increase in the odds that they would either individually carry it over or pass it over as opposed to dump it in. And finally, some discussion. This can lead to some kind of consideration of whether teams want to take a higher risk with carrying it in themselves when they're down big in a game, almost like comparable to basketball, intentionally fouling or shooting more threes, taking more risky behavior that can pay off a little bit more. With further analysis, you'd want to consider how much time is left in the game to accurately reflect how desperate a team is, as well as kind of a full risk-reward analysis of whether turning it over on the blue line is detrimental. And next slide. This is just the individual carries / passes throughout the series for your enjoyment. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Trevor Sermon. I'm a master's student at Ohio University in their sports administration program. But I did my undergrad at Tufts, so it's great to be in Boston and not rural Ohio.
Hi, I'm Quinn Robnett. I'm a sophomore at Syracuse University. Next slide. So today we were looking at Tampa's power play in this series, as they absolutely dominated. They had 7 power play goals, and they only had 18 total goals. And we wanted to look at the effect of traffic on the power play. So we, like 2 other groups already mentioned, we looked at the traffic cone, and basically we were looking at the effect the amount of traffic had on shots getting through to the net versus shots blocked. Next slide.
Yeah, so unfortunately we ran out of time to compare what Tampa was doing with what Dallas was doing. And this slide was put together at 3:44 p.m., as you can see. But one thing that I want to focus on is, so as you can see, we have the average number of Tampa Bay players in the cone during blocks versus when a shot goes through, and the average number of Dallas players in the cone on blocks versus when the shot goes through. There's actually an error there. It should be 1 because someone had to block it. But anyway, so I think an interesting thing here is that you see there are more Tampa Bay players in the zone on average during a block. And from a tactical standpoint, if we build this out and add more data, from an attacking standpoint, that could lead to a conclusion that when your offensive player is coming into the cone before the shot, that's drawing the defender with them, which increases the likelihood of a block. And from a defensive perspective, it shows that you want someone who's always in proximity to get between the cone and the net. So of course, like mentioned, we need to build this out more, but we think we have some exciting starts here.
Thank you very much. I'm David Bergman. I'm also known as the Whistles Go Woo. If you know about daily fantasy sports, look me up. You might find some funny things online. I worked with Daniel Brown. He's a master's student at the University of Colorado in Boulder. Next slide, please. I'm also associate professor at the University of Connecticut, by the way. Okay, so my main question here was, should you be aggressive with where your defenders are on the ice? Please click forward. And so what we did was define a new metric called DD, which is the average distance of the defenders when you're on offense to the goalie line. The more this metric is, the more conservative you are. The lower it is, the less conservative you are. Click forward, please. So on the top one here, you see where the defenders are kind of far away. So you're being conservative, right? You're holding back, you're hoping to kind of stop the other team. The second one shows when you're more aggressive. So again, lower DD, more aggressive. So next slide, 2 questions. Is there a relationship between DD and scoring? So if you're more aggressive or less aggressive, does that affect the scoring or not? Second question, is there a relationship between DD and counterattack shots, right? Because when you're aggressive, you leave yourself vulnerable to the other team coming back. And this is where things were super interesting. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so the obvious thing, maybe, is that if you increase DD, i.e. more conservative, you have less of a chance of scoring. This should be clear. Your defenders are further away. You have 3 people in the zone. It's a little bit harder to score. Next slide. And I don't know how generalizable this is, but for this series, the more conservative you were, the more you were prone to counterattacks. And my hypothesis here might be that you don't get more rebounds. The other team has more time to kind of move around and go, right? So the conservative wisdom is be more conservative, i.e. hold back your defenders, and then you're gonna maybe stop counterattacks, but that might not be true. Next slide. So we need more data. On the one game we had from 1994, I saw an opposite trend, so I don't know how generalizable this is. It might be by team to team, who knows? And also, you should be aggressive, okay? This book says very much the counter argument, but I'm not so sure that's true. And we didn't account for power plays. There's lots of assumptions, but anyway, something interesting that might be there. Thank you very much.
All right, I think that's it. Anybody else? All right, awesome job, everybody. You guys, it's a tough data set, not a lot of time. Appreciate everyone doing this. I think we're all set. The judges are going to deliberate. Take a few minutes to do that, maybe 10 minutes. So hang out, have some more refreshments. I think there are some outstanding sticks, USB sticks, so please return those to Lauren over here if you have one. And thank you very much. Stay tuned.